Welcome to the AME Food Testing Show. Today's topic, food fraud, USP's Food Fraud Database, with Markus Lipp, Ph.D., Senior Director for Food Standards, U.S. Pharmacopeia. Dr. Markus Lipp is the Senior Director for Food Standards at the U.S. Pharmacopeia, a nonprofit scientific organization that sets standards for the identity, quantity, and purity of pharmaceuticals, food ingredients, and dietary supplements. USP publishes quality standards for food ingredients in the Food Chemicals Codex and dietary supplements in the Dietary Supplements Compendium. Prior to this position, Dr. Lipp worked as the Director for Science and Research at the International Bottled Water Association and as the Global Lead for detection methods and reference materials relevant to genetically modified organisms at Monsanto's company headquarters in St. Louis, Missouri. His experience includes working for Unilever, at the Dutch Research Facility, and for the Joint Research Center for the European Commission at its facility in Italy. Both positions focused on ensuring food authenticity and safety. Dr. Lipp holds a Ph.D. in analytical chemistry from the University of Karlsruhe in Germany. Now, welcome with me, Dr. Lipp.
Hi, Andy.
Markus?
Thanks for having me.
Well, welcome to the show. You have an excellent background. You are most welcome as a guest today to begin with our first question. What is food fraud?
Yeah, that's an excellent starter question. Food fraud is the manipulation of food without telling the customer about its manipulation. It could be the addition of an ingredient. It could be the taking something out. It is typically performed for economic benefit of the person who illegally performs that manipulation. And so they're in it for the money, and subsequently they will not tell their customers about that illegal performance. Some easy examples here is the addition of water to fruit juice and still claiming or labeling it as fruit juice. That's a very classical example of food fraud. There is the illegal addition of dyes, synthetic dyes to paprika powder, substitution of saffron, a very expensive spice, with some cheaper things. But it can also extend towards the, let's say, seclusion or the distortion about the country of origin, so that if honey comes originally from China and is channeled through third countries, relabeled as originating from such a third country, and then appearing here in the United States and not labeled as originating from China. All of these are examples of food fraud. All of them are designed to make more money for the fraudster, for the criminal who performs that illegal operation. And all of them are, of course, not communicated to anybody in the food supply chain, being it regulator, being it an industry partner, or the consumer eventually.
Well, Dr. Lipp, your explanation leaves me shocked and frightened that many of the items that I consume and my family consumes may be the subject of food fraud. As you know, we have an audience of 67,000 food production, food quality, food safety, and food security managers. Their main concern may be, is there a systematic compilation of food fraud scholarly and media articles available for them to use as references?
Yes, there is such a compilation available. USP, United States Pharmacopeia, publishes that on the internet. It's available to everyone freely under www.foodfraud.org, and also accessible through our USP's homepage. That's at usp.org. But I would like to make one comment, stepping back a little bit and addressing your fears. I think it would be fair to say that in developed countries, food is safe. As a standard, or just as a statement like this, food is safe. We typically do not have to worry if we go to the supermarket and purchase materials for the family meal or family dinner, that we would endanger any of our family members or children, spouses. Luckily, in developed countries such as the United States, but Europe, it's pretty much the same. Food can be assumed as being safe. However, it is safe for a specific reason, because everybody in the supply chain in the United States or in other developed countries puts in the efforts to keep food safe. It seems to be an unfortunate feature of the human psyche that there's always somebody who tries to make illegally money, and food is no different from drugs, from any other illegal activity, unfortunately. But there are systems in place, there are methods in place, there are processes in place that prevent the majority of those attempts to make it to the consumer. So for the consumer, the message is food is safe, but food is safe because FDA puts in the resources to keep our food safe. Industry puts in the resources to keep our food safe. And that's crucial and critical to maintain food safety.
Well, Dr. Lipp, that's very comforting, and I find that to be comforting, and I join with you in the professional production manager's quest to keep food free from fraud. Let me ask you, what is the U.S. Pharmacopeia? What type of organization is that?
The United States Pharmacopeia is a non-for-profit organization. We are a standard developing organization. We publish and produce standards for ingredients for the pharmaceutical industry, for dietary supplements, and also for food. We do this through compendia in which we have written standards. These are specifications and the test methods to verify the compliance with such specifications. And additionally, we do offer reference materials that are being used to establish the valid execution of those test methods. So USP, that's our acronym for United States Pharmacopeia, as this is a rather lengthy description. USP offers the whole suite of items such as reference materials, methods, plus specifications that an industry partner needs to verify and demonstrate to its customers and to its own QA department the compliance with of an ingredient with its standards. And in the case of dietary supplements and pharmaceutical products, we also do final products. But this is more a food show. For food, in the Food Chemicals Codex, we publish food ingredient standards.
Well, Dr. Lipp, you mentioned earlier that USP has a database that's a repository for ingredients and food fraud reports. Can you review that for us?
Sure, Andy. As you may imagine, if as our core business is the development of standards that describe the identity, the purity, in other words, the authenticity of a food ingredient, we also have to have an understanding what can possibly go wrong with such a food ingredient to ensure that our standards will detect such a fraudulent ingredient, an ingredient that has been diluted with things that are not supposed to be there. So we collect this information on an ongoing basis, and in the course of over the years, we thought it might be a service to others within the food supply chain, be it regulator, be it industry partners, to make this information freely available in the form of a database. Our food fraud database, available at foodfraud.org, or also through the USP website, usp.org, is a literature database, essentially, that is searchable for the ingredient, a type of, have a classification of ingredients or the specific name of a food ingredient, the adulterant that has been reported, the detection method, if available, and then a specific literature reference that any user can go to his or her library and request the original work. We cannot, for copyright reasons, obviously make the original work available freely on the Internet, but we will make all the information available that will allow anyone to easily source the original article and look in more detail. So in our opinion, this provides a historical baseline and a historical database of all the food fraud that has been documented, be it as a scholarly publication or in media articles, if they were substantiated enough, that provides such a database, such a baseline for everybody to look up what can possibly go wrong, or in other words, what has ever been published of going wrong with a specific food ingredient. Now that then can form the basis for a risk assessment for a specific supply chain for each and every industry. And of course, at that point, it gets very specific to the supplier, where does the material come from, which country, and so on and so forth. But we believe our food fraud database will allow everybody to have a very good overview to start this risk assessment process.
Well, Herr Doctor, what are the risks and trends for economically motivated adulteration, authenticity fraud, and or counterfeiting of food ingredients? Is it growing or is it stabilized as a result of this information?
That is a very difficult question to answer. Maybe I start with food fraud is nothing new. There are historical volumes that describe food fraud at the Roman age, and even before that, where wine has been diluted down with water, where sweet-tasting lead salts had been added to wine in the Middle Ages. So, of course, that's very blatant from today's perspective, and those very typically with grave public health consequences. Food fraud effects do not happen anymore. However, it is an ongoing issue. It is an ongoing risk for food manufacturers. The risk for food manufacturers is, of course, the damage to the brand name and ultimately damage to public health. Now, what makes this very interesting, food fraud, counterfeiting, economically motivated adulteration, is the fact that somebody in the supply chain introduces a completely, to anybody else, completely unknown ingredient. So nobody in the supply chain can make additional safety assessments. Nobody in the supply chain is informed that what has been added exactly. I made the example earlier with water and fruit juice. Now, if one adds water to fruit juice with a little bit of sugar and citric acid and calls it a fruit drink, it is a perfectly legal product if it's microbiologically safe. If somebody labels a product as juice, not from concentrate, the addition of water would be prevented by U.S. law. So nobody would look for the addition of water, the quality of the water that has been added, and hence there is no second step and no verification that all the processes are in order. A very dramatic example, of course, with a severe public health impact has been the often quoted melamine incidents in milk powder that happened in China 2007 and 2008, and also for wheat gluten for pet food. Now, there were unfortunately severe public health issues. Babies turned sick, some babies died, pets died, and nobody was asked for a toxicological opinion. Of course, if it had been known to a customer that this milk powder had been laced with melamine, it would have been bought. So, hence, the risk is that some criminal adds a completely unknown ingredient or unknown substance to the food without telling anybody. And so public health and brand, of course, the brand name of a company, is at the mercy of the ethics and the knowledge of that criminal who performs that illegal operation.
Well, Dr. Lipp, that leads to two questions. Is there a susceptibility or vulnerability of individual ingredients to food fraud if a food producer, let's say in the United States, is compositing different ingredients?
Well, I think it's fair to say that food fraud is driven by money, by the desire to make money off that criminal who performs that illegal operation. So an opportunity to make that money is, of course, at the core of any attempt for economically motivated adulteration. The criteria are, of course, how easy is it to adulterate, how accessible is a substitute or anything that can mimic that food product. And so there are various considerations that such a criminal has to perform. But there's liquid formulas are more easy to mix, than dry products. It's much more difficult to mix powders in a way that it's not detectable visually already. So those factors all have to be considered. And it's not really possible to say there is certain food ingredients will never be adulterated, but there are some historical data that also show that some food ingredients are perennially at the risk of adulteration. Now, again, I would like to emphasize at this point, food in the United States, food in developed countries is safe because companies know that. Companies have QA, quality control procedures, to verify the authenticity of incoming food ingredients, to prevent that somebody tries to sneak in economically motivated, adulterated food or food ingredient, to prevent damage to public health, and of course from a company perspective also to maintain the integrity of their brand names. A lot of efforts are going into that, and a lot of efforts are necessary to maintain the food safety that we enjoy currently.
Well, Dr. Lipp, your doctoral dissertation was in analytical chemistry. Does the USP database include a library of detection methods that are peer-reviewed and scientifically proven in journals that can help food managers?
Absolutely. Our food fraud database, available for everyone at foodfraud.org or through our website at usp.org, comprises two main forms of entry or sources, data sources. One, and that's the majority of all entries, the total number of entries is over 2,000. So the majority of those are derived from scholarly articles, from peer-reviewed articles, from the scientific literature, that all provide the following at least three elements that we need to have an entry in the database. It's the name of the food ingredient, what adulterant has been reported, and what detection method. Now, we also have several hundred media articles that describe in some extent food adulteration incidents. However, as in most public press, there are few or scant details regarding the analytical detection methods. Nevertheless, we felt it worthwhile to include them. Our users of the food fraud database have the option to select one or both data sources. So they are all marked with regard to either public media or scholarly peer-reviewed articles, and they can be selectively searched and displayed.
Well, it'd be very helpful for food production and quality managers to review that database. Is there an extract of the information also published someplace else?
Yeah, we published the Food Chemicals Codex, a collection of standards for the authenticity of food ingredients, and it's not just 1,200, and there's actually over 1,200 different food ingredients that are described in the Food Chemicals Codex. There's a substantial amount of additional information available, such as information to GMPs, good manufacturing practices, how to validate the detection method, and so on and so forth, an introduction in detection methods. And additionally, on top of all of that, we also publish a whole excerpt of that database in the Food Chemicals Codex. All the information that is in the database is also reprinted in our book, the Food Chemicals Codex.
Very good. You recently authored an article in the Journal of Food Science regarding this food fraud database. Would you like to review that with our audience?
Sure. When we started developing that database and analyzed the data that we collected and prepared for inclusion in that database and ultimately to make it available to the public on foodfraud.org, we analyzed those data and we thought it might be worthwhile to document our approaches, to document our thinking and our selection criteria in more detail, and then to provide some findings from the database in a peer-reviewed articles to just help the users understand where we're coming from, why are we doing that, why do we see public health implication in food fraud, the whole notion that we discussed earlier about an unknown risk, an unknown hazard being introduced in the food supply chain, that essentially threatens food safety and public health, in a completely unknown way, because only after the fact, after we found out what adulteration exactly took place, what has been added, can a safety evaluation be performed. And as we unfortunately learned in some food fraud incidences, it can in reality be a really post-mortem after people died, after pets died analysis. That is very unfortunate, and this database is our effort, is USP's effort, to try to have some source of information for a more proactive and forward-thinking risk management and risk analysis available to everyone in the food supply chain. We believe that this task of keeping food safe is too big for any one organization. Government cannot do it by itself. Industry cannot do it by itself. Neither can organizations such as USP, of course. But if we all work together and we all look at the information that is there and we all make the best use of that information, we strongly at USP believe that we will continue to enjoy the safe food that we currently do.
Well, Dr. Lipp, I'd like to thank you personally for your appearance on today's show and debriefing our 67,000 listeners on the USP Food Ingredients Fraud Database. I'd like to now allow you any time to conclude your remarks and to advertise any other goods or services that USP may offer to our listenership to help guarantee that we have a safe food supply for us and our families.
Thank you, Andy. Yeah, I would like to point out to all your listeners to check out USP.org. It's United States Pharmacopeia's website, USP.org, where all the information we've talked about is available there. The food fraud database is available there. The description of the Food Chemicals Codex with its 1,200 plus food ingredient standards is there. We have webinars that are listed there, and we announce also on our websites seminars or workshops that we are holding on an ongoing basis in a vast array of different topics. I would like to point out one specific workshop that is coming up September 26th and 27th. It's on economically motivated adulteration in food ingredients and in dietary supplements. It's a 2-day workshop or 1.5-day workshop that has 2 tracks. One focuses more on dietary supplements, the other one more on food ingredients. And the program is there at USP.org, and I would like to invite all of your listeners to check it out and evaluate whether this is something that is of value to your customers. Also, Food Chemicals Codex is described in detail. We publish all of our standards earlier for review, for public commentaries. This is in the Food Chemicals Codex forum, also the link available on USP.org. We have certain email mechanisms to alert our users. So I would like to encourage your listeners to go to USP.org, look at webinars, look at workshops, and look at our products and evaluate whether they can help you and your company to deliver ongoing safe food ingredients.
Well, Dr. Lipp, I'd like to thank you personally for your appearance today. Excellent knowledge, transference, and the contributions from me personally for USP's database on fraud in food. And wish you a great day.
Thank you, Andy. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye now.